Hi guys, welcome back to the Big Sew Along. I'm Ginny, and today we are going to be talking about a pair of pants from designer Tina Givens. They are called the Plinka pant, Plinka, Plinka. They are, this is a free pattern off of the Sew Tina Givens website. This is a pattern I've made many times. I think, I don't know how long I've been sewing this pattern, a long time. And can I just stop and tell you, I rearranged today because I don't like being able to see through the side window when I'm filming. So I moved my camera, and then my husband was like, yeah, that wall's really blank. So I went to the trouble of putting up my really cute picture graphic of an old sewing machine, and now I'm sitting literally right in front of it. And all you can see is the dusty window up above it. So, say la vie. Anyways, back to the Plinka pant. So, like I said, this is a free pattern. This is a bloomer style pant. It's very big. It's very generous. It's drop crotch. It's wide. It's voluminous. I personally love this style. I go back and forth between being like super minimal and super what's the word, whimsical and over the top. And every time I look at Tina Givens' website, I just fall right down that rabbit hole again, and which is nice because it's a lovely rabbit hole to be in. Anyway, so a friend of mine asked me a question about one of Tina's patterns the other day, and I went back on her website, and then I was like all over. I feel like since this whole COVID situation started, I've been really utilitarian in my apparel because I just haven't been going anywhere. And I have to tell you, when I looked at Tina's website the other day, it just reminded me how much fun it is for me to get dressed, how much I like that, how much I love the lightheartedness and the whimsical nature of her stuff, and how much better that makes me feel just in general. So I really felt like I needed to break some of that stuff out and really embrace it, because I feel like there's very little whimsy going on these days. I could use a little extra. This wow, long intro, sorry. So this pant comes in sizes extra small to large, and the hip measurements it is to fit a hip of 38 inches to 48 inches. However, I will say the small is the size that I usually cut, is for a size 40 hip. And when you measure it, it's a pull-on pant, so there's no zipper or anything like that. It has to go over your hip from the waist, at the top, whatever, you got it. When you measure it with the seam allowance, I use a half an inch seam allowance on this, and I think I just say later on when I'm going over the pattern, I can never find on this particular pattern a seam allowance. I think Tina's patterns usually have a 5/8 inch seam allowance. I have always used a half an inch on this one. It was probably the first Tina Givens pattern I ever used, and so I just guessed. So the size small, which is meant to fit a size 40 inch hip, when you measure it out, comes to 44 inches. So it's pretty generous. So I'm just saying, if it's meant to be fit a 48 inch hip, it could probably fit a little bit bigger than that. So number one, measure this pattern before you go any further if you're going to make it, because it is really generous. Okay, so that said, it is a sort of a cropped pant. It's not, you can certainly make it longer, but as is, it is not a full length pant. It's more like ankle length. However, it has ruffles if you choose to use them. We don't use those in our demo today. I do it just plain, no ruffles anywhere. But you have options for ruffles, pockets, and patches, and pleats, and all kinds of other things that you can do with this. Today, all I do is I'll show you in a minute. What I really do is just show you how I created a side seam, added a pocket, and did some different pleating on the hem. But this pattern is ripe for hacking. Once you figure out how it fits and how you like it to fit, you can do a million things with it. I have done a million things with it. So that said, today we did not use the ruffle. So without the ruffle, I used just under 2 yards for the size 40, which is a small. I don't see anywhere on this pattern where it would give you measure or yardage, but just use that as a frame of reference. I mean, it is a free pattern, so you're not going to get, like every little detail. It is an amazing pattern. I don't want to like discount that. It's really, really cool. If you like this sort of thing, then aside from checking Tina's website, which I highly recommend, you should also see if you can't purchase one of her magazines. She has a magazine on her website. I think you buy it digitally for, I don't know, $12.95 or $9.95 US. But if you like this style, it's a very inspiring magazine, and you should definitely check that out. So right here in this next section, I am going to show you how I make some alterations to this Plinka pant pattern. Here's our pattern, and according to the measurement chart, I would be making a size small, which fits a size 40-inch hip. My hips are actually 39, so that's totally fine. That I know that the extra small is just smaller than I want it to be. So the only thing is I cannot find a seam allowance on this pattern anywhere. I have made this a million times, and I have always used a 1/2 inch, and I feel like that works fine. So this is the excuse me, this is the small size right here, this dotted line. So if I measure here, this is at the top. It's just a pull-on pant, so I need to be sure that this distance is going to fit over my hips. So from here, let's use the tape measure. From here, which is the seam allowance, to this this edge, it's 11 inches. That means that the front is going to be 22 inches and the back is going to be 22 inches for a 44-inch seam. 44-inch opening. Is it supposed to be a really big baggy pant? I really like that about it. That is perfectly fine. However, I want to put a pocket in here, and the easiest way to do that is with a side seam. I could technically just sew this at a 1/2 inch and I would be fine, but I really want to maintain my 44-inch circumference, so I'm going to add a 1/2 inch seam allowance to this side. Let's move this over here so we can see all the way down. Okay, so as written, you would cut this piece twice on the fold, both times. I'm going to cut this piece twice, but I am not going to cut it on the fold because I'm going to have a side seam here. The other thing is, much like the last pant we did, I want to make a pocket. I really like a pocket in my pants. So for the front, you can see here, this is the waistband. There's a fold here and a fold here, so this should be the top of your waistband. I know that I want my opening to be 7 inches at least. I don't mind a really big pocket, so I might make it a little bit bigger than that. We're going to do this exactly the same way we did our other pants. So here, 7 inches is right here. That actually looks pretty good. I'm measuring it from the top of the waistband, not from the top of the pattern. So that is going to go right there. And then that looks like, not now from the side seam, again, not from the seam allowance, it looks like it's 3 inches across, and I feel like that is probably just fine. That looks like a good pocket. I'm going to take my French curve, and I'm just going to turn that in from a corner into a curve. And I actually think I'm going to move it like this, so it's a little bit of a deeper curve, like that. So now my pocket opening will look like that. Now when you cut this out, you are going to have to cut it all the way up to the top, excuse me, and over to the side seam, but you don't want to use that for your measurements. Okay, so then how deep do I want this pocket? I probably want it 4 inches. So 4 inches looks good. Is that a little shallow? It's like, make it 5. Like I said, I like a deep pocket, a big pocket. 1, 2, 3, 5 is right there. So that can come over this way. And then obviously you don't need as much over here. I'm going to say 2 inches here. Okay, so again, if you want a curved pocket, you can go ahead and curve this out. I think I will. So this will be the shape for your facing. You're going to cut here for the facing and for the front of the pant, and then you're going to cut this whole thing, this thing right here, for the actual pocket piece. Okay, and I feel like that is probably fine. Okay, that's just the front piece. Now, I'm not actually going to cut this out, because what I do is I just lay this pattern on top of my fabric, and then I chalk mark those lines, this line onto my fabric, and cut it, and then lift the pattern and cut it that way. I'll show you that in a minute. So this is for the front, obviously. Then on the back, because we have a 44-inch opening, and I really don't want all of that bunched up around my waist. I have made it that way many times before, and it's fine. I just wanted this one to be a little bit less bunchy. So I know that I need the opening to be 40 inches, and I have 44 inches. I am going to make 2 1-inch darts, which means it will be 42 inches. Still pretty big, but I am not going to, but I think that that's fine. So halfway between using my side seam and my front, which is 12 inches, so 6 inches is going to be right here, actually right exactly where I have this line for my pocket. That's going to be our line for our dart. And I am going to make it, a 2-inch dart, 1 inch on either side. So it'll be, I'm just measuring, this is my center point. I'm measuring 1 inch on either side of that. So that's 1 inch, and that's 1 inch. That's it. And I'm going to measure 5 inches down. These are a long drop waist, drop crotch pant. It could be longer than that if you want it to, but it doesn't need to be. I just want to get some of the excess out of my waistline. So I'm measuring 5 inches down from the waistband, which is right here. Okay. 1, 2, 3, so that's 5 inches. That's going to be our dart right there, and it's going to end right there. And then we're going to cut this portion that is just the waistband. We're going to go straight down on both ends, just like that. And then from this point to the end of your dart, you're just going to go straight across at an angle. Like that. Okay, so now, just not to get confused, this is for the front of our pant. This dart is for the back only. If this is too confusing for you, you can retrace this whole pattern and just do one for the front and one for the back. I just prefer to use the one piece. Now, the other thing I'm going to do here is I want to put a bunch of pin tucks at the bottom. This is really wide at the bottom. And what do we say, the small? This is the small measurement right here. And again, it's going to go over to here. So the bottom of our pant opening is, looks like it's about 15 3/4. So we need to so 15 1/4 across, which means it's going to be 31 inches wide. So we're going to do 10 pin tucks. We're going to do 5 on the front and 5 on the back. And they're going to be 1/4 inch each folded over, which means that they're going to be 1/2 inch once they're folded. This is going to be pretty much our center point, 15 1/4. We're just going to fold that over and see what that is exactly. 7 1/8 maybe? 7 7/8. Okay. So this is going to be our center point right here. And we're going to make 5 pin tucks. And I think we're going to make them, I'm going to make them 5 inches long. I am not going to worry about this hem. Normally this pant has a ruffle on it. We're not going to use a ruffle. I'm going to use a binding, but I also don't need to allow for a hem to get folded up. So 5 inches from the bottom of my pant is right there. That's more or less centered. That's 1. And then I'm going to put them on either side. I'm going to make them about, I'm going to put them 2 inches apart. So the next one is going to be right here. And then I'm going to put one right here. And then I'm going to go this direction. We're going to put one right here and one right here. And again, we want them all to be the same length, so let's just mark those out. It's going to be 5 inches. And I'll show you how we're going to make those once we get to that. We can also, if we decide that that isn't enough, we can always add more. And I'm pretty sure, if you look at the Tina Gibbons website, I'm pretty sure that she's actually done this pin tuck detail. If not on the Plinka pant, then on something else. Okay. Now we're just going to cut our pattern out. So when you're cutting, just remember, you want these 5 marks on both the front and the back. You want to make your pocket, if you're making a pocket, you want to make that only on the front. The dart, only on the back. And you don't have to use the dart. If you don't feel like it, you can just do the pant as is. You don't even need to put a side seam. If you want a pocket, the easiest way to put that in is with the side seam. And that's a pretty simple alteration if you want to do that. All right, so I'm going to get this cut out. So this is one of my fronts, and all I've done so far is just assemble and put together my pocket there. And here at the bottom, you can see where we have our 5 slits that indicate our pin tucks. They're tiny little splits. I just marked those with a little slash. So what I'm going to do is fold these wrong sides together. So the front of my fabric is facing up, and I'm just going to fold it right in half and make sure that that is a straight line. And we know that our pin tucks are 5 inches long. So they'll end there. And I'm using linen so it creases really easily. You may want to press these flat with an iron. And I'm just going to put pins right along the edge. I'm going to sew this at 1/4 inch away from that fold. And then I'm just going to move down to the next one, which is right here. Just try to be sure that this is an even distance so that you know your pleat is laying flat. And you may need to actually just mark the length with a pin ahead of time. I have this grid, which makes it really easy, but if you don't, you just mark that with a ruler. Now remember, we're doing this on the front legs and the back legs. So we're going to do this exact same thing 4 times. Okay, so I'm going to do one leg, and then I'm going to hold it up in the mirror and see how I like it, and then determine if I need to make more pleats. But I think that that's going to look pretty good. So I'm going to do this leg. I'm going to check it, make sure I like it, and then I'm going to continue with the other 4 panels. And then we're going to press these all to one side. I think I'm probably going to press mine all towards the center. Okay, so I'm just going to attempt to show you guys how I'm doing these pleats here. Okay, 10 more to go. Okay, so I just wanted to show you guys what I ended up doing with my darts here. These were the darts that we put in the back. Originally, they were 1-inch darts, so folded over, this would have been 1 inch, which means that we were taking out 4 inches from the waist. I tried them on again and it still seemed like a little too big, so I made them a little bit bigger. It's about 2.5 inches on each, 1.5 inches folded over. So 6 inches taken out of the waist altogether. And that seemed to fit a little bit more like I wanted it to. Then I also decided I was originally going to use the 1-inch elastic, which this pattern calls for, but then I decided I would rather have a 2-inch elastic. So this portion, the straight portion, Moosh. My dog's going crazy. Mooshy. Instead of being, Mooshy! Oh, for goodness sake. Instead of being 1 inch, this needs to be, instead of being 2 inches, which is 1 inch folded over, this needs to be 4 inches. So it's 2 inches folded over, and that'll cover your whole elastic in there. Now, because I made it wider and also made the straight portion longer, that in turn means that I had to make my dart leg longer, just so it could come back in at a more reasonable rate. Then, so I think it's probably 6 inches now. Then I also, because we had so much excess in here and I didn't want it to be bulky in the waistband, I just trimmed this out. Now I just make sure I don't cut the top of the dart off too low, because when we fold this over, we want it to cover that raw edge. So if this is 4 inches, if the straight stitching line is 4 inches, then this is like 3.5 or 3 3/4, just so I can put my elastic in and fold that over, and that will cover that raw edge and also all of this, and it won't be as bulky. Now, so that's done. I'm just putting my elastic in next. The only thing I have left after that elastic is to put a bias binding around my hem, and then we'll be finished. Okay, so that's the side seam pocket version of the Plinka pant. The rest of that pattern is, as you saw, pretty much as drafted. Now I'm just going to show you really quickly, because this, like I said, this is a pattern I've made many times before. I hacked this pattern a while back, many times actually, over the course of a few years. I changed it in different ways. I'm just going to show you the difference between the pattern we use today and the one I use most often, which is one that I hacked before. Okay, I just wanted to show you guys how I have altered this pattern in the past. This is the pattern as it is, as when you get it, except for the alterations that we made today, which were the pocket and the dart, and then we added pleats at the bottom, so there were more pleats. You can see this leg is really big and wide. This is the top. This is the leg, really big and wide. Obviously it comes in a little once you put the pleats in, but even here, I mean at the crotch, you'll see that it's really wide. So this is really meant to be a big, baggy, bloomerish kind of pant, which is exactly why I love it. I have, however, in the past made this pattern many, many times. And this is the draft that I use most often. This is the exact same pant. I'm gonna put these side by side so you can see. But you can already see, first of all of my lines from playing with it. I narrowed the leg considerably on this. This one here, you know, this right. This one here is the one I have altered. This one here is the one that we sewed today. So I hope you can see the differences there. All I really did to achieve this is I established roughly how wide I wanted my hem to be. I made a mark there. I drew a line from the crotch point, a straight line from the crotch point to the hemline. And then I just used my French curve to sort of curve that out a little bit. And it's pretty straight from about here down, but the curve from here to here, and it's pretty slight. It's not a huge curve, but it does eliminate a lot of that excess in the leg if you wanted something a little less full. If you guys are interested in seeing my regular bloomer that I usually use to make, I use this to make, just leave me a comment and I will be happy to do that. It's actually one of my favorite pants of all time. Alright guys, I hope you all like that. I hope you enjoy using this pattern. Like I said before, it's one of my favorites. I love to use it because you can just do all kinds of crazy stuff with it. If you like this kind of style and you like this kind of pattern, aside from checking out Tina's website, which I highly recommend, and her magazine, which I also recommend, I encourage you guys to hit subscribe if you don't mind. And also check in next week when we'll be working on a coordinating top tunic to go with our Plinka pants. And that's it for this week, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate your time. Bye.